This episode of Man of Prestige. The world we live in is not about being loud. Okay, the most powerful nations are not the loudest. Okay, the most powerful people are not the loudest. Tip number 2, the masculine frame. How can you engage a toxic argument and remain in your masculine frame? No, you got caught up in your emotions. So you have two feminine playing role and it's chaotic. No wonder, right? Right? How do you get back to your masculine frame? Without being dismissive, right? Say, interesting. Well, that's how you see it? Yeah, that's interesting. I gotta keep that a thought, right? Are you simping? Whatever. As long as you get to results that you're looking for. If the result you're looking for is to be right, you don't need to do anything. You can shut this video down and just say, no, I was right and I'm happy being right. There are people that are right and they end up in divorce. There are people that are right and they lose their ladies to the simps. Okay? At least in your 5 tips how to argue effectively with your girl. All right, I try to pretend, but that wasn't working. You should absolutely avoid argument with your girl. Okay, absolutely avoid argument with your girl. Why do I say that? Why am I saying that? Because I know arguments will happen. Okay, we're humans. Okay, and arguments will happen. That's just what it is. It is what it is, right? It will happen. But that's precisely why I tell you to avoid. And I know that arguments is one of those things that seem harmless in the beginning. It's not a big deal. That's my girl. Why can't I have a healthy debate with her, right? What you don't see is things you can't see. Okay, you fight not against flesh, right? But against principalities, spirits from dark places, and there's so much you're dealing with when you engage in a romantic relationship. And that's why there's growth in romantic relationship. That's why it's also, in my opinion, one of the best places where you can experience growth as a human being. So avoiding it doesn't really help either, because you just get stuck and be a socially awkward human being in this world. Yes, I said it. Okay? So now, with that being said, how do you argue effectively with your girl? There are 5 tips I want to share with you. And I promise you it's probably going to go more in the direction of helping you to avoid toxic arguments without being dismissive. See, you may hear Ola said, okay, don't engage active argument with your girl, toxic argument. So now you just shut down and you're dismissive when she's saying something, she's making a point. You just shut down abruptly and you're just dismissive about it. That's not going to work either, because that's an easy escape. You're trying to escape the easy way. Maybe you could relate to what I just said, and you know that you cannot win an argument with a woman, right? A man who knows a woman does not argue with a woman, right? I didn't make that up. That's a saying. Okay, I don't know who said it first, but that's a saying, right? And it's real, right? Because as humans, we have emotions. We get caught up in our emotions. We engage conversations, and then eventually we're just in this argument and like, oh, it's awkward. I'm trying to avoid it because all I said it, but it's hard as hell. I don't want to come off as dismissive because you've taken it to another level, because you really should not come off as dismissive, because that will come back and bite you in the butt as well. So I'm sure you've been in it. You're just having a simple conversation, and then the anger takes over, and then you start yelling at each other. It was meant to be, you made your point, you had an opinion. Why can't people have an opinion? What's wrong with that? I want a girl who's okay with having an opinion. Well, that kind of girl too, they tend to be more in their masculine. You sure that's what you want? If she can be not a typical girl, and not be in her emotions when she's arguing, and she could say, no, we could go debate each other, they tend to be in their masculine too. See, in this life, Nigerians will say life no balance, right? That means you have some, you lose some. That's how life works. But to the winners in life, that's okay. They understand that game and they use that to play the game, right? Instead of complaining and bitching about it, right? So with that being said, there are 5 tips I want to share with you, and they're not exactly how to argue effectively, but just to keep this at the back of your mind so that you know why. You should have a solid reason why you should avoid arguments with women in general without being dismissive. How do you do it without being dismissive? The first tip I'll give you is by actively listening. Listen to what they're trying to say without being judgmental, without interpreting things so fast as sign languages, okay? It's not every time somebody has some point against you that it becomes shame, insult, guilt, and need to be right. As a matter of fact, when you feel that way, you're the one practicing the need to be right. Because why must you be right? If you're already right, why do you need other people to validate that you're right? Right? All right, good. So let's go to the tips. The first tip, number 5, is competition. If you're actively competing with a woman, you're basically demonstrating that you're equal. That means all is fair. That means she can disrespect you. She's not necessarily doing it deliberately. You're playing a game, right? You're in the middle of a sport. Somebody smack your butt. You're not gonna be like, why you smack my butt? It's a game, right? You guys are having fun. You're joking around. You can't suddenly say everything is deep. It's not that deep, right? But maybe you're the first that goes towards the angle of deep. Maybe she's the first one, right? Bottom line is that both of you are equal because you're caught up in the emotions. There's an active competition going on, and when there's active competition going on, there's no romance. There's no sexual polarity. It kills the vibe. It kills everything. Tip number 4, validation. You're seeking validation. Okay, we talked about that in the 190s video, right? If you're actively seeking validation of your woman, there's a difference between a need for validation and wanting it, right? Of course, it's nice. Anytime a woman comes to me and she kind of like, you stroke my ego a little bit and tell me she likes something and she validates something I did, the work I did, it feels good, of course. But there's a difference between wanting it and knowing it feels good and not minding it, and neediness, clinginess, need for validation. This will kill attraction as well. But that's what you're doing when you're in an argument, a toxic argument with your woman. Tip number 3, life is not fair. Just write that down at the back of your skull, right? No, I should be able to make my point too. Can I say mine too? No, life is not fair. If you're trying to be the leader, right? How you lead is not being louder, because you're a human being. You're not a goat. You're not a lion. You don't need to be loud to be the alpha in the room. What you need to do is be able to get to results without the need to be loud. Okay? That's how you dominate the world we live in. It's not about being loud. Okay? The most powerful nations are not the loudest. Okay? The most powerful people are not the loudest. Tip number 2, the masculine frame. How can you engage a toxic argument and remain in your masculine frame? No, you got caught up in your emotions. So you have two feminine playing role and it's chaotic. No wonder, right? Right? How do you get back to your masculine frame without being dismissive, right? Say, interesting. What, that's how you see it? Yeah, that's interesting. I got to keep that a thought, right? Are you simping? Whatever. As long as you get to results that you're looking for. If the result you're looking for is to be right, you don't need to do anything. You can shut this video down and just say, no, I was right and I'm happy being right. There are people that are right and they end up in divorce. There are people that are right and they lose their ladies to the simps. Okay? At least in your definitions, right? Even though I disagree with those definitions, right? The masculine frame it's a rock. It doesn't need to be loud. It creates structure. It is what it is. You could go crazy and all, but everybody comes back to it because it's the structure of the situation, right? Tip number 1, modern men and women's opinion, the trap. So you're gonna go to a modern man and he's gonna be like, no, there's nothing wrong. This is society we live in right now too. Don't talk to those dinosaurs. Sure. Question I always ask is, how's that working out for you right now? There's a good chance it's not too good, right? If it's not good, don't you think there's a chance that something is probably off, right? You go to a woman and you say, you have a problem arguing with a woman? Of course she's going to tell you no. She's not going to tell you that, no, she wants to be right all the time. So the fact that you don't have the social and emotional intelligence to know that ahead of asking her, that tells me a lot. That's one of the things we got to work on here, right? Because when you end up in an argument, because that's going to happen, like I said, the point is to find a way to maneuver and navigate it to a healthy place, right? That's the whole point of this video, right? When that happens, if you can't read ahead of talking to a woman and asking her opinion, well, you're going to fall in the same situation over and over again. And unfortunately, a lot of times it's going to be too late before you find out that that's what happened. I argued too much with her. I was always in the toxic. I didn't know that she didn't know either. Okay? These things are subconscious. It takes professional studies, time upon time, years, decades, centuries for these things that I'm talking to you right now. It's beyond the present facts that you can read. It's about reading beyond emotional, social, reading vibe, body language, things like that. Being able to read a room without people telling you facts with their mouth, because there's a tendency they will lie to you anyway. If you're going to wait for them to tell you, or you need to go to a website to read the facts that could be framed up, people have rhetoric, people have they have agendas, right? So you can't just go by the facts that's written down somewhere. You also have to ascend yourself to a different level of wisdom where you can. And how do you do that? You listen to these insights and you process. You take the time to process. A function of time. Take the time to process it, and don't be so in a hurry to have all of the answers to everything in the world. Because if we did, the world wouldn't exist.